Hello again. I'm making this video as another meditation on addiction, a topic that I've covered many times on this channel, because of course it is something I'm deeply acquainted with, having detailed many of my sort of struggles in the past with various substances and the darkness that it can take you down. This sort of mode of being where your mind is totally fixated and enslaved to your desires, the sort of hedonistic drive within you, which seems to sort of have this temporary pleasure at the foreground, this way of sort of escaping from reality. But of course, when you fixate on it, you're ignoring everything else in your reality. Everything of importance, such as your relationships, your health, whatever job, whatever you have. It seems as though everything is consumed by this sort of demon of addiction. And so I make these sort of videos in order to communicate the knowledge that I've sort of acquired, the wisdom that I've acquired from dealing with this sort of beast. And hopefully sort of to communicate something of value or of use to people out there. Because we all suffer from addiction to some degree. This kind of desire to wish to escape from the burdens and obligations of reality. And in addiction, we will choose something that provides us a sense of comfort for a short while, a sense of euphoric escape. And when we sort of repeatedly indulge in the cycle of addiction, we should understand that we are rewiring the way our brain processes pleasure. And I've spoken about this before. This is a very pernicious aspect of addiction, whereby it sort of rewires your brain to only find pleasure from the addiction. And so when we're not sort of engaging in that addictive activity, we don't really feel alive. And our brain is telling us all the time that, just get that thing, get that drug, or do that thing, you'll feel alive again. And of course, the way that craving works is that it will spin within your mind the sort of the memory of the pleasure, the memory of that high, the honeymoon phase of addiction. And it spins you that memory, and then you remember what it felt like. And then particularly if you're in a present moment where you feel a bit dull, that's often when the cravings sort of start to subtly, present themselves. And in that moment of weakness, where our inhibitions, our willpower, our ability to say no and to choose something better for ourselves, when that power is weakest, that is when we are most susceptible to the false allure of addiction. And, I've sort of been what they may say clean for a long time now, over a year and a bit now. I don't know exact dates. I mean, that's another thing about the haze of addiction, particularly with the various substances I was using, a wide-ranging cocktail of mind-altering things. Your sense of time, your sense of linearity, your sense of memory becomes severely eroded. So when I look back, yes, I can remember bits and blotches, really. But a lot of what I was doing is just getting high and playing music all day. That was my existence, as I was sort of dissociating away from, my university studies, my relationships, everything else. I was in this real sort of deep pit. I was spiraling, and these crazy drug binges, which were really doing a number on my health. leading to panic attacks and just very, very severe depressive symptoms. So, that's one aspect of my addiction. There's a lot more there, which I will probably talk about in another episode, I suppose. Not just because I feel sort of self-indulgently wanting to, bear my soul out, but because I think it's important to talk about these sort of stories. Other people listening to this may resonate with certain aspects, certain ways in which I'm sort of thinking about it and experiencing it. And I think that's the whole point, really. I think because, of course, many people going through addiction, they feel profoundly alone. And it is sort of loneliness and alienation that sort of takes you into the sort of withdrawing from reality. When you withdraw from reality, you feel, you start to think, what's the point in doing anything at all? You feel this profound lack of meaning in your life. And when you have that profound emptiness, you fill it with temporary pleasure. For me, my pleasure came from drugs and, escaping through music. There's something wrong with music, but when you're literally just like binging stimulants and dissociatives for like 8 hours, just sort of, it was fun. It was fun in the moment for a while. It was a strange, absurd kind of ride within my consciousness. But it deteriorated my mind as I sort of kept doing it over and over and over again. It's crazy. I look back and I was sort of on this ride of constantly wanting to escape from the present moment, escape from the feeling of neutrality, of sobriety. I just wanted to enhance stuff. And this started, I suppose, or tendency. I don't know how deep-rooted this tendency is in my psyche, how far back into childhood it is. But when it came to substances, I did begin with, cannabis. Cannabis was profoundly mind-expanding for me. But that mind expansion, that feeling of, inner bliss, inner calmness, I began to sort of self-medicate with them, which I suppose many people who are neurodivergent tend to do. And, with regards to cannabis, I can see it as a sort of a substance with nuance. Obviously, there are genuinely real medicinal properties of it, but there are genuine cases of addiction. And sometimes the lines are blurred between them because you can be addicted to something and believe it to be, medicinal. That's a sort of a lie that an addict can tell themselves that, I'm just exploring my consciousness right now, or, I need it. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel fine. I need it for medicinal purposes. You can sort of gaslight yourself sometimes. I'm not saying this is the case all the time, but sometimes it can be. And, but I remember with my relationship with cannabis, which began when I was 16 and, probably lasted about 6 years when I stopped. I stopped mainly because it didn't make me feel good anymore. It was, over time, it sort of spiraled and became a sort of slightly anxiety-inducing sort of thing. It would arouse in me sort of uncomfortable bodily sensations, particularly in my heart, where I'd had problems with my heart from, all the stimulants that I was doing in the past. And it would sort of resurface sort of memories of panic attacks where I'd have where I would think, oh, something's really wrong going in my heart. But I want to sort of come down to this sort of this point where cannabis for me created this sort of relationship of escaping from my present sober experience, because I very quickly, particularly around the age of lockdown when I was like 18, I became a daily habitual, you know, what you'd call a chronic user of cannabis. And now throughout this time, I was still, what you may call very functional. I was still very cognitively able and stuff. But I remember my general existence was, finding that sort of haze of cannabis where you're just flowing through experience, and there's no real worries, I suppose. There's nothing really truly disturbing me. I was sort of in this sort of, that cannabinoid haze, I suppose. Um, but I would notice that, like, as I became very, very reliant on cannabis, uh, I became very dissociated from my sort of natural baseline conscious experience. If I ever didn't have cannabis or it wasn't available to me, I would notice that, like, my baseline was just a little bit lacking. So perhaps, I was using cannabis to treat a kind of depression that I had at the time, looking back. And I think that can work, certainly, um, for a while. But of course, in my own experience, sort of when I was getting older, um, around the ages like 21, 22, I sort of graduated to more, regularly using more of dangerous compounds for your health, um, which was the case when I sort of went to university. And then I found myself in daily use patterns with substances that really should not be used daily. And and that gave me sort of access to witnessing your mind become very chemically hooked on the substance. Um, if cannabis can hook your mind a little bit, like, certainly, but there are other compounds where the urge to redose, it becomes very, very compulsive, powerfully compulsive. And, I would see myself sort of, when I was without certain drugs, all my mind could think about was sort of acquiring it again. And then when you have it, it's just like you just indulge, and it's like a big party, I suppose. And you feel great in the moment, and you blow through it all. And yeah, it's almost like I would watch. There was a part of me that was still aware. I was just watching myself sort of just in this loop of dopaminergic indulgence. And there was a part of me that was enjoying it. That's why these things happen. Then what what really sort of forced me to confront the reality that I'd been avoiding was the negative health effects. And of course, these come after, um, and you're forced to confront. With myself, I was losing a lot of weight. Um, my mind wasn't able to focus as much. My emotional stability was slowly eroding. My ability to feel pleasure or enjoyment or anything from life was becoming very, very muted, which is probably the worst kind of thing to happen. This is anhedonia. Anhedonia is an inability to feel pleasure from the sort of things in life you should feel pleasure from. My brain had been so hijacked by the pursuit and gratification of very, very powerful substances, um, that everything else became just like a yawn, like a sigh. It was just nothing compared to that. And here I am now, over a year past all of that. A year and a half perhaps. And, it I'm making this sort of video because even this morning when I was just waking up in a sort of a very drowsy state where you're sort of more in a sort of intuitive mode of consciousness where you can sort of feel more what your subconscious is sort of thinking about. And I had a sort of, a memory of that period where I was sort of indulging and snorting these sort of drugs and a very indulgent, pleasurable, hedonistic phase of my life. And it was almost like that past self of mine sort of, just sort of tempting me a little bit because despite all of that, my life is very much more in sort of stability. So I suppose this sort of memory is trying to sort of pull me off that sort of bandwagon, try and tempt me with the memory of just how good it was. Because how good it was is an illusion. Because it wasn't good, I was escaping and indulging in something that was killing me slowly. That's how the devil seduces you, really, with the allure of pleasure of the flesh. But this pleasure of the flesh kills the spirit within you. Now, this period of my life, I recall, it was a very creatively intense period because I was making a lot of music. I was having all sorts of wacky contemplations of reality. And, I see there is some purpose to why I suppose I found myself going down that path. And the purpose, I suppose, is like the shamanic journey to the underworld, the destruction of oneself, and then the rebuilding of oneself, the rise of the phoenix from the ashes. And I have this outlook because it sort of acknowledges how addiction is a very transformative journey for people. It can either destroy you or it can initiate you into a more hardened, more wise, more knowledgeable soul. Because it is often through suffering that we learn the most profound lessons in reality. We do not learn when we're residing in our comfort zone. It's when we're really grappling with the deepest and darkest depths of reality that we really discover who we are. Now, I would not encourage the path of addiction for anyone. But I want to acknowledge how it can teach you certain uncomfortable things about yourself, about the weakness of your will, how you can have your autonomy hijacked by your desire and indulgences and your pain, and particularly your ways of dealing with pain, which are unhealthy. But yeah, I've learned a lot from the experience. And I suppose my journey is sort of transmuting that knowledge to you, or to help you. So yeah, if this has helped you, please do reach out. I appreciate any and all forms of communication. It's good to really, see who it is who is listening to these videos, who resonates with the stuff that I'm doing. That's part of the whole purpose of what this is, But yeah, I hope that's been interesting. It's been insightful. And enjoy the rest of your day.